Will you please join me in welcoming Joy Harjo to the stage? Joy?
Well, it's really an honor to be here and to accept this fellow, being the inaugural fellow. So I've been very careful in my behavior, so that there will be others. Anyway, I am of the Muscogee Nation, also of a Geobova ceremonial ground, and I'm just really honored to be here with the plant people and those who take care of this beautiful place. It's storytelling, so I'm going to lean a little more towards that. But so I'll go back and forth in different manuscripts, books, and so on. This book came out a week ago. People are calling it a memoir, but I have a contract for my third memoir, which I've started working on here. I'm going to read a piece later that I wrote yesterday, which means it will probably be revised a lot between now and then. But I'm going to start with the first story in here called The Story Field. I was young in my poetry making. I was a mother to 2 young children with a full-time job and tending to what my art demanded. I was beset by dreams that were appearing more and more dimensional and real. I was as awake in them as I was in my living. And I think about being an artist and what it takes to be an artist. It's almost like a calling. And I think of my discussions with Bobby Harvey the other day and her husband's art, André's art, that this was an honor of. And we're all kind of like that. You know, it's the dream field, the dreaming field. And it's the artists who take care of it in a very particular way. In one of my dreams, I was taken by a guardian far above the earth. Earth was dressed in blue and green. She was lit from within. I was enveloped in a lush darkness that extended forever to eternity. Space was not empty. Rather, there was a profound depth of sound presence, like an echo stacked within an echo, with many layers of echoing. There were blues that don't exist in everyday earthly existence. Stars and planets glimmered like giant colored diamonds. I was in a circle of exquisite belonging. When I looked more closely at the detail, I was in a lit field of stories. They were all over the world through all time. The stories were constantly shifting in shape and color. Where there was kindness, there was light. Meanness made upheaval. There were those who created light and shared it, and others who stole and devoured it. Every story that has ever happened made an imprint in the field. The past was just as mobile as the present and the future. Everyone's thoughts, dreams, and actions were motivated by the story direction. The energetic particles around and through everything were made of what we Muscogee people call onagechka, or love. It is a fierce love that is strong enough to compel to beauty and right action. It is a love beyond what is fully comprehensible by any singular mind. It is happening now. In the dream, I understood that we are Earth. We are the story. All of this was shown to me then I woke up. I was much like you. I turned off the alarm, slid out of the bed, and stepped into the details of the day. And then this little poem, it's called Fall Song. And it's one of the first poems I wrote for my husband. We met in '74 at National Indian Youth Council. He was working there. He as the finance officer. And it makes a good pairing, by the way. And years later, we got together, and in about 13 years ago. But this was when we were first getting together, and it was fall and fall song. It is a dark fall day. The earth is slightly damp with rain. I hear a jay. The cry is blue. I have found you in the story again. Is there another word for divine? I need a song that will keep sky open in my mind. If I think behind me, I might break. If I think forward, I lose now. Forever will be a day like this, strung perfectly on the necklace of days, slightly overcast, yellow leaves, your jacket in the hallway next to mine. And I wrote the page numbers down for everything but this one. It's called Speaking Tree. And I don't know if it's getting older, but I like the perspective here from this viewing point. And I don't know if it's because when people get older, you start having more of appreciation for the immensity of the importance of trees and birds and so on. Maybe it's because you can listen deeper or wider because you've cultivated it by listening to poetry. But this is called Speaking Tree. This one came from, started because Sandra Cisneros, she and I have been friends since graduate school, and she wrote me in a letter, I had a beautiful dream I was dancing with a tree. And then I had a dream, this has been about, I didn't have everything here to try to find it, but I had this tree came to me in a dream, and it bent down and spoke to me, and I don't remember everything that it said, but it was also saying thank you for acknowledging the trees. And then it wasn't a residency, I was at some school in North Carolina, and they put me out at some estate with a lot of trees. And so I was walking around and I saw the tree in my dream. Some things on this earth are unspeakable. Genealogy of the broken. A shy wind threading leaves after a massacre, or the smell of coffee and no one there. Some humans say trees are not sentient beings, but they do not understand poetry, nor can they hear the singing of trees when they are fed by wind or water music, or hear the cries of anguish when they are broken and bereft. Now I am a woman longing to be a tree, planted in a moist, dark earth between sunrise and sunset. I cannot walk through all realms. I carry a yearning I cannot bear alone in the dark. What shall I do with all this heartache? The deepest rooted dream of a tree is to walk, even just a little ways from the place next to the doorway, to the edge of the river of life, and drink. I have heard trees talking long after the sun has gone down. Imagine what it would be like to dance together in this land of water and knowledge, to drink deep what is undrinkable. Okay, this book came out. I had 3 books come out this year, and 2 of them, I'll read from one later, and this one is called For a Girl Becoming, with art by Adriana Garcia, which is going to get a big honor in November, and I can't say what it is. Don't you love when people do that? I'm going to read from the middle of it, not the whole poem. But I wrote it when a granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter, was becoming. She was like at that age 13, and we decided to have an event for her to acknowledge her becoming. We had the adults speak to her. We did a prayer. This was actually a prayer for her. And then we she gave everyone a present, and then we fixed her favorite meal. And let's see where I'm going to begin. But yesterday I had friends visit from Philadelphia with their little boy who is like 11 months old. And of course I'd seen walking through here the children's area, and what really makes that children's area, of course, as the designers knew, is water and the ability to play in water. But what was interesting, and he was so observant, very beautiful soul, and it turns out his father is an engineer, which makes sense because he was looking at everything with the mind of an engineer, even at that age. And but the thing that fascinated him most was the fan in the room. That's all he taught, the fan. He liked the water. So then I had to take him out in the back at the horticulture, the place, the greenhouses where they have all of those fans. That was the highlight. Which has probably never happened on a tour where that. But these children are, I've started thinking of them as baby elders. Yeah. So I was thinking for that granddaughter and the children who read this and the adults, we all go through times of change, is that of her being born and her life journey. And what this artist did that was so brilliant is you see the child being born at the beginning, and then you see her as the story continues growing up and becoming a woman. It's just beautiful. And I know you can't see all of this. I'll have it out there at the book signing if you want to look at it. Now breathe. And when you breathe, remember the source of the gift of all breathing. When you walk, remember the source of the gift of all walking. This is in the middle of the book. And when you run, remember the source of the gift of all running. When you laugh, remember the source of the gift of all laughter. When you cry, remember the source of the gift of all tears. When you dream, remember the source of the gift of all dreaming. When your heart is broken, remember the source of the gift of all breaking. And when your heart is put back together, remember the source of all putting back together. Don't forget how you started your journey from that rainbow house. We all did. How you traveled and will travel through the mountains and valleys of human tests. There are treacherous places along the way, but you can come to us. And valleys without horses or kindness, but you can come to us. And angry, jealous gods and wayward humans who will hurt you, but you can come to us. You will fall, but you will get back up again because you are one of us. And as you travel with us, remember this. Give a drink of water to all who ask, whether they be plant, creature, human, or spirit. May you always have clean, fresh water. Feed your neighbors. Give kind words and assistance to all you meet along the way. We are all related in this place. May you be surrounded with the helpfulness of family and good friends. Grieve with the grieving. Share joy with the joyful. May you build a strong path with beautiful and truthful language. Clean your room. May you always have a home, a refuge from storm, a gathering place for comfort. Bury what needs to be buried. Laugh easily at yourself. Grow kindness with others. May you travel lightly and well. Praise and give thanks for each small and large thing. May you grow in knowledge, in compassion, in beauty. Now, I was thinking about the plants, and people say I have a green thumb, and I don't have a lot of plant knowledge except that I like them, and I take care of them, and they teach me a lot. I have a lot of plants in the house. Someone gave me, and then people give me plants, and I'm trying to keep, they're taking over, and I've learned, I love animals, but I travel too much. And I thought, well, plants are okay, but no, they get upset. They get just as upset. And somebody gave me an African violet, and I'd always heard that they were so difficult to grow. But I had one, then I got it a companion that's still growing. And, well, I guess I got it after because I left instructions for how to water, and somebody watered my African violet while I was gone, and the roots, when I got back, the roots were rotting. And I'll read this from here. My African violet plant was dying. She had been with me for more than a few years, hanging with me through more than one residence. She had bloomed consistently through the whole time we'd been together. Then I left on a trip and forgot to leave the specific directions for watering her. She was overwatered. By the time I returned, her roots had begun rotting. We had communicated every morning as I opened the blinds in her corner of the world and gave encouragement for her to heal. Before long, there were no flowers, and the leaves that would push their way into the world were small and atrophied. As I tried to save her, she also tried saving herself. This went on for a few months. I kept asking her where her flowers were because I missed them. She had been so generous with her flowers. One morning, there was one tiny purple flower. That was her final gift to me. Within a few weeks, she was gone. So I have friends who are mediums. I've got all kinds of friends. And they talk about, one of them did a reading on my husband, and of course, his ex-wife appeared very beautifully. But who came up next? This is a nice audience. People don't always get my jokes. But who came up next was his beloved dog, Gabo. And he got tears in his eyes over that one. And so I wrote her after this flower. I said, so do any plants appear? Like when you go do plant, I think about that, because when I go, I want to see plants that I have. I want to see that African violet on the other side. And then there's this one called Eat. Now, I married a white-collar man, and he's become a blue-collar man. He decided he wanted to farm. Well, he also loves plants and animals have a thing with him. And we have some land out by the river. And the first year of planting, I noticed that everybody seemed to be eating everybody else. And so I did call it farming, but it's called Eat. Eat. Grasshoppers devour the sunflowers, petal by petal to raggedy yellow flags. Squash blossoms of small suns, blessed by dewdrops, flare beauty in the morning, until an army of squash bugs land and eat, then drag their bellies from the carnage. Field mice chew their way into the house. They eat anything sweet and leave their pebbled shit I had to use that word, in staggered lines to the closet door. Hungry tree frogs cling to the screen. Their curled tongues catch anything with wings driven to the light. We find a snake hidden on the porch. There are rumors in the yard of fat mice frolicking here. The night is swallowing daylight. We sit down to eat. Now this one, I wondered about. I'm going to read Rainbows Speak first, then I'm going to read the piece I started here. And scientists will tell you this, that everything is in communication in some way or the other. And this is something I learned about rainbows. Now, I lived for about 11 years in Oahu, the island of Oahu in Hawaii. And mostly what I did there was race outrigger canoes, because that's what I wanted to do. And I loved the water and the plants there and so on. And but I learned something about rainbows. I was living in Alewa Heights on the island of Oahu. The house was on a road that led to a ridge from which you could see almost the whole island and beyond. From the window of my workroom, you could see the sweep from downtown Honolulu to my south, out past the airport to the west. I must have been writing, because when you are in creative space, the doors of perception swing wide open so that you have access to larger, timeless realms. This also happens when you walk in gardens and you aren't looking at your phone. I paused in the momentum because I heard a voice, not a human voice, but in the airwaves outside my ears, rather from the intuitive realm. Come out and see me, urged this voice that was not a human voice, not a scary or frightening voice, but the voice of a kind, light frequency. I was curious as to who was speaking, so I followed the voice. I left my workroom and walked down the hall to the lanai and arched in the sky. Over and beyond the neighbor's house, over the banana trees, was a rainbow. She had called me out to see her. She was as beautiful as ever as she arched in the sky from the Ko'olau Mountains to the ocean. I wondered why this was the first time I could hear her. I took a photograph of her to remember that day. That the rainbows spoke and could speak marked a profound change in my awareness of communication being possible between humans and elemental forces like clouds, rain, and winds. In the prevailing Western belief system, two-legged humans are the only ones endowed with the ability to communicate. Yet, because of the rainbow and other experiences, I have learned that communication is ongoing among all living things, animals, plants, the elements, and even the stars. We also knew this is possible from the stories that have accompanied and formed most indigenous world cultures. Now even the scientists can prove that there is communication among all living beings. After that initial encounter, rainbows continued to teach me. They showed me that though they might disappear, that they reappear. When they reappear in the same area, they are the same spirit. They go where they are needed and when the conditions call them into being. This was given to me by a rainbow on Kauai in Waimea Canyon at Kokee State Park. She disappeared and reappeared twice to show me. Another time a rainbow spoke to me was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was in the back seat of the guitar player Larry Mitchell's van, heading south to Los Lunas for a visit and photography session with our friend, the photographer Karen Kuhn. As I watched out the window, a rainbow appeared to the east in front of the Sandia Mountains. I heard the rainbow say, "I will see you later, and I am bringing someone with me." I was still surprised the rainbow had spoken to me. I kept it to myself, of course, and I should probably be keeping this to myself. It was very late afternoon, a perfect light, and the three of us went out onto the bosque for the image making. Then, as Karen shot her characteristically beautiful images, behind us a double rainbow appeared in a stunning double arc. There was the rainbow she had promised and the other rainbows she'd promised to bring. I've heard rainbows speak since, but not very frequently. One day, recently here on the reservation, I was missing rainbows. There's a lot more of them in Hawaii. There's a lot more who live there. I hadn't seen one in too long. The islands have a heavy rainbow population, but here in the middle of the mainland, there's not so much. As I drove west and seemingly in response to my reverie on the scarcity of rainbows in my recent life, a rainbow appeared. "We are still here," it said, and then disappeared. I don't know why the rainbow spoke to me. Maybe because I would remind you and be reminded that we are in a living story of manifestation and communication. I am at the age now where many of my teachers were when they were passed their knowledge on to me. I am now passing this on to you. Even stories ripen. There might be something here that will help you as you navigate a very changed world in which people have forgotten that we were part of a living planet, a living system. Each of us has a voice and a presence. No one is above the other. I'm going to read a piece I wrote, started yesterday, and then I'm going to play a song. I'm giving a notice to the people who run the sound system. I'll play the song after this. Okay, there you are. So it's an intense story, but it's what it is. I am at that time in my story making when there are more backwards looking memories than those that are yet to be lived. Some memories emerge without warning from the waters of time, like clouds morphing in wind currents. They can be of past, present, or future in the spiral of time. Some memories nudge you because they want to be accounted for. There's something else to be gleaned, or someone misses you and is asking to be remembered. Yesterday was one of those perfect fall days in the northern hemisphere when the trees are breaking into yellows, reds, and golds. My husband Owen and I were walking the meadow trail at Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania in the late afternoon. At a turn in the path, the light suddenly lengthened, and there appeared a memory of Ingrid Washinawattik. I remembered her welcoming smile as I walked for the first time into the Madre offices in New York, where she was working, far from her tribal lands in Menominee, Wisconsin. I could hear her laughter as we shared time with each other, spoke about families and our work. As I continued following Owen through high grasses, I remembered the story of how she and her companions were force-walked through the highlands of Colombia by armed FARC guerrillas who were taking them to their deaths. Ingrid and her two companions had been asked to come and help start a school system by the Uva people. I first heard about the Uva people on public radio. That's why they're so important. They were threatening to commit mass suicide because their people would no longer be Uva if oil companies despoiled their lands, their waters. They hadn't become so civilized that they had forgotten that they were of land and water. Their culture embodied that knowledge in the symbols, motifs, and designs in their art and language, similar to most indigenous cultures. As Owen and I made our way, I imagined how it must have felt to walk on an unknown trail in that terrible crux of anxious undoing, knowing you no longer have any control over the fate of your life, except that you just have to go with what armed strangers have in mind and accept the cruelty of it, even as you are longing utterly for home, your children, your family, your memories, and even as you are searching for some way to escape. When I was held up by gunpoint in Los Angeles, my mind split three ways. I was aware of the life emanating from the nearby tree, of the emotional, there was a compassion from the tree. I could see it and hear it. Of the emotional fields of the young men and the story of how they had come to the point where they were blasé about threatening and potentially taking life for a little cash and jewelry. And I was aware of waves of time and that the trajectory of my life to that point. It is all gone and done now, almost 30 years later. And I wonder if those soldiers feel any remorse as they followed orders. What are they doing with those memories of causing harm to others? Do they consider it righteous duty, then drink and take it out on their wives, their families, their bodies, as do many veterans of war? Those of us left who knew her, knew Ingrid, still carry the light of her memory within us. We still remember her husband and her son. We remember her commitment to organizations like Madre that was set up to assist women in embattled countries. And when she was asked to assist the Uva people in politically precarious territory, she went, knowing that there were moneyed forces that would do anything to mine lands and peoples for greed, even kill. What stays with me as I remembering in yesterday's fall light, even with this difficult perception, is the lightness in the presence of brave and beautiful Ingrid Washinawattik. It is what we Muscogee call Anagechka. It is love that lifted from her from the story toward understanding. And I see that in this story field, that all stories are eventually all of us. We become every story to learn compassion. Ingrid was also remembering me, telling me that despite the challenges that happened, that she continues. Her sacrifice became a story that empowers those working on behalf of tribal education and stewardship of lands. The Uva did take over a missionary school and transformed it into a community-run bilingual school. I gather up the beauty of the changing trees and grasses as they merge into this story of autumnal transformation and use it to remind you that we need to take care of these lands, these plants, these forces that depend on and that we depend on, and they depend on us. For after all, we are Ijanagaja, or Mother Earth. We must make memories that nourish the coming generations of our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, not just the two-legged beings, but all life forms. So let's see if I can pull this up. Now, this song is Muscogee, and you may have heard a version before, the ukulele to this song. It was commissioned by Robbie Robertson for the Turner Network film Native Americans that I narrated. And so when I have an album that I just finished, we just got the master tracks in. This isn't the master track. Oh, it is the master track. I was able to do that one. But it will be out the album will be out in March from Folkways Records. It's called Insomnia and Seven Steps to Grace, and was produced by Esperanza Spalding and me. But anyway, we did this version. It's the only one I play flute. I play native flute. I play mostly saxophone, so I play sax on most of them. But there's this one, and it's a redo of that song. And I sent it to them, and they're getting credit, but they love, the makers love this. If I don't find it here in a minute, I'll keep going. It used to come right up when I would do it, and I could play it. Okay, I found one here. It's not the song I was going to play. This is the lead song. I'm not playing anything on this.
The heavens peers over the edge of the world. The moon washes her lean darkness.
I did my first
with
painting
water
in 50 years.
Electrified
As a
by
cover for
prayers.
this.
A baby sleeps on the breast of her mother, with milk in her mouth. A fly contemplates the sweetness of lactose. Her father is wrapped in the blanket of nightmares in the house of chaos. He approaches the heart's red hills. They will sing for him. Her mother is a prophet disguised as a student, looking for a job. She stands at the door of dreams, an empty bowl in her hands. Panther watches as human and animal souls are lifted to heaven. Rain clouds partake of songs of beautiful thunder. Just before dawn on the city street lit by chemical yellow, travelers search for home. Some have been drinking and intimate with strangers. Others are escapees from the night shift. Someone's girl stops at a red light and sings to the chorus of a whispery blues. The stars take notice, as do half-asleep trees who drink exhaust into their roots. She guns the light to home, where her baby is sleeping, and may never know she left. That her fate took a turn in the land of nightmares toward the sun may be untouchable knowledge. house of panthers and the 7 steps to grace. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Truth in the house of panthers and the 7 steps to grace. Sleep. One day we will awaken.
Okay. Well, that wasn't the real pretty Muscogee, but so I'm going to close with this poem. It's going to be my next children's book. It's wonderful illustrations I just got copies of from an Ojibwe artist. And it's called Gathering the Light. And I want to thank you, say Mado, which is thank you in Muscogee for this fellowship or being a fellow and for getting the time to be here among the plants and all the people. The staff has been incredible and wonderful, and the plants and, all of this. So thank you so much. It's called Gathering the Light. It's a children's book, but it's really a reminder. I have to be reminded for all of us. Okay, Gathering the Light. We live in a circle. It begins at sunrise. Go out to greet the day, to respect, to honor. It doesn't matter whether you're in the middle of the city or the far edge of the reservation. If you can't go out, then stand in your imagination, in the place of your dreaming, to welcome the day. When the sun crosses the horizon of earth and sky, gather light in your hands. Breathe it deep into your being. Say thank you in the language that speaks your heart best. See how the light emerges, how eager it is to move, to help and assist. It dances and swirls about as it feeds and inspires all the beings of earth. Ask that it bless the path of your mother, your father. Don't forget your brothers and sisters, and there's grandma and grandpa, your aunts and uncles, and your friends who walk beside you as you learn and play. And then that little dog who so faithfully guards you. She stands next to you, breathing the light, thinking her dog words of love and thank you. Ask that your path this day be a blessing to others. Ask that you think, speak, and act in a manner that gives light a place to live. The sun is ever moving through all seasons, all storms. It stands at attention to living and dying. When it looks down from overhead, it lights up your story. Know then who you are and who you are becoming. How everyone is making, everyone matters. No matter how large, no matter how small, the world of the fly is no less than your own. The sparrow will tell you, and so will the moon. We live in a circle. The day moves to night, to the sundown place of letting go. Stop and listen to the songs of the birds, to the trees and animals who gather there. Even the plant beings are alert with attention, even the winds, the trees, and all beings. Breathe and let go of every small and large failure. Let go of that fear, that misstep, those words that hurt you. Let go any harm you may have caused to any one of us, large or small. The night will come, as it always will. Your story will wrap its arms around you and sleep a little. We need the dark for our dreams to root, to face and fight the monsters who scare us, to learn how to call on the guardians who save us. You will tell your children how we live in a circle, how at sunrise we will rise and catch the light, how sundown is a place and time for letting go, how we are the circle, ever moving with light. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy, so much for that beautiful reading. We do have 2 microphones, and we can do some questions if anyone has questions they might like to ask. So the microphones are over here.
That children's book will be out next fall from Random House Children's Books. Yeah.
Hello. Hi. I'm just wondering how, it seems like you have so many creative interests. How do you decide which thing you're going to work on at any given time?
Yeah, that could be difficult. I started out as an artist, and I was working on I got within 6 hours of a studio art degree, but this poetry thing was taking over, and I was a single mother with 2 children, and so I had to make a decision. And then the poetry became it. But I always loved music, but then I found a way to saxophone as its own discipline. And I found a way to merge the two in performing. And now that I'm older and I have I keep acquiring grandchildren. Not through birth, I've actually garnered from my travels all over. And the painting, it's something I've always wanted to go back to. And I said, well, I'm going to go out of this world painting. And so my first painting was that song, Insomnia and 7 Steps to Grace. And then I just am almost done with another. And then as I was reading Speaking Tree, I thought of painting. But I work on projects. And that's what happens, is I focus on a project. And meanwhile, you still have to practice and things. But it can be a little intense, but I figure with all that energy, I'd be in trouble if I wasn't doing something. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question. I need my glasses. You had said in a couple of today, you had said one thing, everyone matters, and then another line was all stories are eventually all of us, which are so beautiful. But I'm wondering how you kind of square that with people who hurt other people, so just wondering about that. Thanks.
Yeah, I wonder about that too. I don't have an answer except that what it seems like to me that, that's hard to reconcile. That's really hard to reconcile, but at the same, I guess like what that dream showed me too is that if you stand far enough back, there's a larger story at work, and our small human minds together we can understand more if there's more than one of us. But if you're using your singular human mind, and then I think there's a dimension or a realm if you get far enough back. It doesn't say it's okay to cause harm, because harm comes back on itself, whoever it is. We experience it. But there's some larger, I have to believe that there's that all I can do in the face of this cruelty that we're seeing is, sometimes I don't want to engage it and become it in that way. But it still needs to be addressed. And I still believe that love, even though it may not appear to be so from right now in the time wave, that it eventually overcomes. And I have to believe that. And if that's not what happens, then who wants to be in this world? And then you get to the existentialists. But you look to the natural world too. I mean, the natural world, there's cruel things that happen in the natural world too. It's not all, there's destruction, creation cycles that go on. We all die, we all pass from here. And I've seen good deaths and I've seen rough ones, just like births. We live in, I think there are some realms that aren't so polar. This is a world of polarity. I was worried about reading that piece about Ingrid because it's so beautiful out there, but I think because of what I've been through in the last 2 years in my personal life where I have seen cruelty, that I could not believe possible. That's in the community as well as in the family. And yet at the same time, I've seen people rise up. But I think what it's teaching me is that that's all here in the story. And what each of us is accountable for is how we act and how we respond, not react, but how we respond, and continue to hold each other up and to give out kindness. That doesn't mean we become battering rams, but because self-defense is important too, but that we think in terms of the collective at the same time, that we are the collective and that we work together, and that arts are so important to the visioning of who we are and who we're becoming, and the story. I think of the artist, and I mean like performing arts, painting, all of the arts, as the artist as the point people of culture. So it's very important. So thank you for this supporting of the arts, so to speak, by having me here, as well as supporting of this beautiful plants and plant people of the earth. My editor, by the way, had trouble with my phrase "plant people." Yeah. She says, now, let's think about this. And I'll think through things with her. Some things I've agreed, and some things I said no to that one. I wasn't going to change the plant people. But thank you. That's a good question, and I think that's one we're probably all asking and will continue to ask. And the only way you will know at the end of your life that, anything with kindness is not going to haunt you. Somebody may not return your kindness, or they might even act against you, or they might even harm you. But you are responsible for how you act, and kindness won't keep you up at night.
Thank you. I love how this, as you were just talking, the focus of the light, the circle of light, the connection of all. I'm wondering, did you develop that from your native roots, from elders in your community? Like, I want to hear more about your spirit, how your spiritual perspective developed.
I'm thinking that might be my next memoir. Now, I was doing a trilogy, and then Girl Warrior came out, and everybody thinks that's memoir, and it's not really. But that's okay if it fits in a category. It needs to fit in a category, but that's what I'm thinking about, because I've had a lot of teachers. Some elders from other communities, not just my own. And some teachers in person, in real life, some are in books, some poets. Some teachings that come to us that way. Some can be real teachers, like I always think of Mrs. Anderson in 6th grade, who, she never said much to me, but she saw me. And I could tell, I didn't want pity, but she saw what I was going through and honored. And I always liked the teachers that kept discipline, because we got a lot more done. Sometimes I'd sit in a class and say, why don't you just let me take the book home? I can do all of this and not. But she kept a classroom, but I think because she paid attention. And so I think of her. And I've written about other teachers. There are many other teachers, some, healing teachers I got to work with. I studied healing touch and got to work with horses out in a Waimanalo horse ranch at one point. So I've had a lot of different teachers. And I think we all come built in, it may not seem that way, with an inbuilt cadre of teachers within us. Some of them are our ancestors, and some teachers are even our enemies. Sometimes I think maybe you decide to come in together and teach. That's a cool way to think about it. You test each other. And how does a teacher test their most beloved? I remember doing a class out at, it used to be called Navajo Community College. I think it's Dene College now. And I was in a class, and I told the class, I said, well, a mentor, a wise person reminded me that a teacher will test hardest those students that they know have it in them to make it through that. And I said, so Native people are really special. And he said that helped heal him. He left, he went writing and writing and writing. He was writing and writing, and, that to think of it that way, rather than to look at the destruction and losses, because there's also been a lot of successes. Like this dress I have on was designed by Naomi Glasses, Naiomi Glasses. She's Navajo or Dene from, lives in Kayenta. And I liked seeing her social media posts because she was a weaver, beautiful, kind of groundbreaking designs with her rugs. And she was also a skateboarder and would skate in her traditional dress and make these rugs. Well, I guess the Ralph Lauren people saw her and they did a collaboration. So she's done a few collections from with Ralph Lauren. And that's where this dress came from. And so I saw her at Indian Market in Santa Fe, and she saw me, and so we got our photograph taken together. Yeah, I said I always get compliments on this dress. Yeah.
I wanted to know, when you first started, or perhaps like when you're exploring a new part of yourself, how do you overcome the fear of being vulnerable and sharing how you feel with the world?
I don't know. I think part of it's always there in some way. But I know when you're first starting, it can be, especially, you can be very vulnerable. And I think that what you have to do is, which you have to do in your life, is make place for mistakes and realize that they help you understand and get to the next level. And I think, if you're new at doing something and you want to put it out there, I would say just, with students in creative writing classes, you've got a made audience and critics. Some of them not very good critics, but but you have that. And I always remember the first class, the fundamental class, and to get a BFA, that teacher got up, stood up on the tables, and marched around talking about how we would all fail. And by the end of the next class day, there were only a few of us, and that's how he got his class. That's how he got his class. But he also had people that were willing to come through that fire and do the work. So at some point, and maybe it's not for everybody. Some people write or create for their family. Or I learned this teaching creative writing. They write for their church bulletin, or they write for you just. Ultimately, you have to decide what you need to do for yourself and then cross that line, and you will, if that's what you want to do. You will cross. It's hard to be criticized sometimes. You learn to do it for yourself. I mean, I was revising, and that's why I have a pen up here too. Just listening to get something to the best. But yeah, I think that it's you keep going. And it's practice. A lot of that's practice. Doing it the first time is the hardest, and then the second time. But the thing I learned when I've taught beginning creative writing students is that if I have them read aloud, they hear what a critic, they hear you hear it. You hear what's not right about it. As Jessica picked me up, I said, I'm reading this aloud. I caught a lot of stuff, that piece I read you that's brand new. I caught so much from reading it aloud, and that was probably about my 5th draft. And after hearing it, I'm going to go back and tweak it some more. Yeah.
One last question. Oh, thank you. Hello, I just want to thank you. I'm sitting next to a young woman that I just met today, and she's an environmental science major. And it's nice to see young people here. And I want to thank you because of your inspiration of inspiring young people, which we really need right now. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, ma'am. What a wonderful note to end on. I think that was really special.